Figure out your communication in the off season when you're fed.
Yes.
That's my recommendation.
Yes. When you're
That's
fed,
smart.
well
When
rested.
you're fed and have energy.
You want to introduce me to the people?
No,
Do they
you
know?
already know who the fuck
Who
you
is
are.
this?
Who's this asshole?
Who is this?
You pulled this stranger off the street to join our podcast for today.
No, so what happened is like 10 years ago, I fed him. And like when you feed stray cats, you just own cats now. Like that was the thing, is like I fed him and he just it's kind of like a fungus. He just stuck around.
Live here now.
But yeah, before we like dive in, how was y'all's week?
Going.
Great.
Both Laura and Meg are like, yep.
That good, huh?
I never realized how shit my immune system was until I started to be in a gym, like working there. This is like the fourth time I've gotten sick.
You do get sick a lot.
Yeah, well, that's because everybody's an asshole and comes in sick as shit. And it's just like, let me touch this and be in your personal space. So it's like, okay.
That's how we got COVID the first time, is there was a guy in the gym
doing
and he was
deadlifts.
hacking up a lung.
Yeah, oh, you can tell right away. Like, I don't have COVID, but like I just have like a cold.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell right away when somebody has COVID. You can just hear that like bronchial cough. You're like, oh, you should go. You're an asshole.
Okay, so Laura's sick. Meg, how are you doing?
Holding up.
Holding up. Okay, so not sick, but
doing good. Just stressed, busy, but we're making it work. Flying out on Sunday for the UC. So gonna head out there. I don't think Chip is gonna come, so he has to go to the doodle farm. I'm sad, but it's all good.
Right. Mom, I don't want to go.
I know. He loves going to Heather and Matt's though. They have like four or five other doodles, so he's just like part of the pack. He loves it. Yeah. A little doodle farm. It's cute.
That is really sweet. That's cute. I'm okay. Like I'm feeling like under recovered. Like I'm not like thriving, but like since I did
saw
like,
that on your story.
Yeah, I did like obviously a lot of back-to-back travel, and like my first week back in my programming, my body was just like not fully recovering. So I'm taking a rest day right now. And honestly, I'm okay with it. Like I don't want to push when I need to pull back, because that's just gonna either exacerbate like the recovery issue, or God forbid get me injured and I just got recovered. The lat's doing good, the intercostal's healed, so I'm just like, listen, just chill, take a load off.
Yeah.
What's up with you, dude?
I was wondering if someone was gonna ask me how my week was.
Yeah, how was yours?
How was your week, Chuck?
Thank you. Good.
It's a typical guy. Good.
The emotional intelligence of Dryerland.
You know what we really want to know, Eric? What is it like living with Ashley when she's constantly making these elaborate like cupcakes, cookies, and cakes, and like how is it being a professional taste tester?
Ooh, so that's a good question. I like that, kicking us off.
Yeah. That only happens, it's funny, when I am underweight.
Or when it's cold.
Or when it's cold. Yeah, there was a while where I started to trend up a little bit, right?
Oh, no.
It wasn't muscle, and she was like, no more.
No more. Yeah, no more. I was like, oof, that's not a good look. But no, that started like when we were first married in Athens, Ohio, when we were back in college, and we didn't have like really good heat because we were in a house, but it was like the house was subdivided into 4 different mini apartments, and so we only had like a heater, and it wasn't a really good heater. And so whenever we wanted to feel warm, I would bake, because we had a gas oven, and because our apartment was like 600 square feet, maybe even smaller, when I baked, it heated up the entire place. And so like Uma would be by the stove, I'd be baking cookies or brownies, and you know, our apartment would be warm, and so we didn't have to spend a lot of money on utilities.
Yeah, it was a pretty sweet deal.
That's smart. Yeah, it's warm, it smells good, you get food. What more could you want? Yeah,
I never left after that.
Yeah, but Eric and I have been together for almost 10 years. We'll be celebrating a decade in January of like dating and whatnot. So we've definitely learned.
Stay sweet.
Did you decide on a trip? You had mentioned that.
I don't. He wants to do Asheville because it's
cabin
stuff, which I get. That'd be fun, but like I'm like Meg. I like warm places, like below 50 degrees, and I'm like, okay, this is miserable. We're still working on it. We'll likely end up doing Asheville because I'll probably end up caving.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to go so far south for it to actually be any warmer than it will be just here.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
And you don't like the cold, but you also don't like driving.
Yeah, I just get sick of driving because like when we drive to Ohio, it's like 12, 13 hours. And so that's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to be in the car.
I like driving. I love driving.
Oh, I hate it.
No.
I'm dreading that trip up in December.
But you get to see us.
I know. I'm gonna make a little pit stop.
A little pit stop in Charleston.
Yeah.
If I drive more than an hour, I'm getting on a plane.
Yeah. Honestly, it's smart. I think the total is like 13 and a half from Tampa to West Virginia.
Why are you choosing to drive? You don't want to fly?
I have to drive. I have to bring my car back home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I wish I could fly my car.
I mean, you could.
But
I
wish I could just sell my car, but whatever. Don't want to get into a fight with my parents. So they're going to take the car.
For sure. That's smart. That's smart. But yeah, if you guys want to kick it off, like talking about like, are you asking us any questions about like how we work as a dynamic or whatever? Because I know a lot of people struggle with their partners either not supporting their bodybuilding goals or even vice versa, partners not understanding how to be supportive of this sport that we're in that makes us most times kind of crazy.
Well, I think the first one is, Ash, you weren't always a bodybuilder and you guys started dating when you weren't into bodybuilding. So how did you guys like deal with that? Like you going to him and saying like, hey, I think I'm going to try this out. Like, how was that initial conversation?
Yeah, so it was interesting because like I'd always been into fitness, and I'll let Eric tell his side of the story when it comes to like how he got into fitness. So I don't think it was too much of a shock for him to like knowing my kind of compulsive nature to want to like go to another extreme when it comes to adopting bodybuilding. The biggest, I think, hurdle that we had in bodybuilding was less of bodybuilding and more when I wanted to use PEDs, because in full transparency, I am going to own this because it's honest. I was a fucking child about it. I threw a temper tantrum. I like threw all my shit away because he was like obviously having reservations about PEDs and concerns, and I didn't want to hear it. So I literally threw all of my shit away. I threw the biggest temper tantrum and I just pouted. Right. And of course, like when you do such a extreme ultimatum like that, like there's no compromise. And so like he essentially like relented and like pulled all of my shit out of the garbage. It's like, I will support you in this, but I need you to be smart. I need you to be safe. I need you to take care of my wife. And that for me, like looking back on it, that was a few years ago. And like, I regret how that unfolded because of just, again, the pressure and the lack of compromise. And quite frankly, just the childlike behavior that I exhibited. Like looking back on that, I'm like, damn it, I could have done that so much better to where it wouldn't have driven such a wedge in our marriage, especially.
Yeah. That was definitely tough. Although actually her starting bodybuilding was like not a change at all.
Yeah.
I actually started working out when I started dating Ashley. Like I had worked out before, so I knew what exercise was, but I had never done it on a consistent basis. And I knew she went to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. So I was like, no, I have to. And that was 10 years ago, and I've worked out for the past 10 years. So, but yeah, definitely, she was already tracking her food. She was already going to the gym 5, 6 times a week. So really the only real change was that now she was going to have a coach who was going to tell her how to do those things, which was great because she was way overdoing everything. So getting a coach who was a little bit more chill, he'd be like, hold on, maybe you don't need to be in the gym 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
That was good.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to kind of
yeah.
pivot that into the next topic. So were you guys together when she was going through like eating disorders and things like that? Okay, I thought so. Yeah. So then this comes about of wanting to get into competitive bodybuilding, not just like focusing on bodybuilding as in general speaking. Were you reluctant of her wanting to participate in that due to the extremes of the sport and due to what you had already been through with her, knowing the like level of leanness she'd have to get and the emotional and mental health impact that has had already taken place?
Oh, for sure. But when she was getting into bodybuilding, she was still struggling with her eating disorder. So I was definitely concerned, but to be frank, I was kind of like, it can't make it worse, you know? And just like with the coach.
Correct thought, but
yeah, where I was when I started bodybuilding was already like so restricted, where at least for me, having a coach and staying accountable to them, like that was actually helpful for me because that's how it was less of a done out of self-hatred and more like, oh, well, maybe I can be an athlete. So for me, it was positive, even though definitely in most cases, bodybuilding tends to exacerbate the underlying issue of eating disorders. Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely didn't help her mentally for a long time, but she was eating more.
Yeah.
Right? Because the coach was like, you need to put on muscle.
Yeah.
I think most people that had an eating disorder prior to bodybuilding, not saying that bodybuilding doesn't give many people eating disorder issues, because definitely does, come into bodybuilding still disordered. And in a sense, it does end up helping them for the level of structure that it's requiring to have not solely a season of getting lean. Like it also has a season of building and whatnot and having to have regimency for the opposite direction. That was what helped me. I was fully still in an eating disorder when I came about bodybuilding, and it was more like, hey, I'm already doing all the things and now it's accepted here, so like might as well
get a trophy for it, right?
Right? Let's do it. That's why my first prep was 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you have any, like, because of the eating disorder, did you have like a discussion together, like any like red flags that would like pop up during prep or anything like that to help, well, for you to help her kind of through?
That would have been a really good idea.
Yeah.
That would have been a great idea.
I had no idea what bodybuilding even beyond like that's what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. No idea what it even was. Right. So I mean, like, yeah, you get up on shows and I guess that you're lean, but I wasn't acquainted with the fact that there would be prep cycles and building cycles and peaking and everything like that. So I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. We'll see how it goes. Right.
Yeah. I think something good that would be good to discuss is how did you feel about me working with a male coach, and how do you feel about me essentially having my ass on a jumbotron or sending like, doing check-in photos and putting them on Instagram? Like, how does that make you feel knowing that like there are other people, other males especially, like looking at my ass? Like, talk about that, because I know a lot of people struggle with that, both male and female side.
Yeah, so definitely there were times where I was like a little hesitant about it. I'm like, why are you doing this? But I realized that there was a line, right? And it actually has nothing to do with how little clothing your partner is wearing. For me, the line is, are you intentionally seeking the attention of the opposite sex? And are you thriving off that attention? So you could be in a jacket and jeans, right? And if you're going out there intentionally looking for another man's approval, that would definitely hurt me. But a bikini, because you're proud of what you did, I mean, it's your sport. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's my sport. And it's also in some part how I promote my business and stuff like that too. It's like a part of like my whole thing.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. It's also like a financial thing too.
So what would you say to people who maybe have reservations about that?
Oh, talk about it. Right. as a person who wants to go up and get on stage, understand why you're doing it, have a really good grasp on why you're doing it or why you're posting those photos. And as a partner, be willing to listen to that. Right. And honestly, I think at the end of the day, most people's insecurities about those kinds of things have to do with how they feel secure about their relationship, right? In general.
Yeah, a lot of like the insecurities that we worked through was like always the intention of why we were doing what we were doing and having those hard conversations. But really that starts off with like making sure that you know how to give and receive love and attention and affection. And sometimes a lot of partners, especially new ones, are still working that out. And I know it's super cheesy to read the 5 love languages or take the quiz or whatever, but we found that to be really impactful because like we found out like how the other person feels loved and receives love. And so one of our major struggles first starting off, especially when we did long distance, is Eric feels very loved with physical affection, right? Like not even just sexual affection, like physical affection, like, just like, rubbing behind his neck or giving him a hug or something like that. And so that was really difficult when we did long distance. And the way I feel loved is doing like acts of service. And so obviously if he's not able to do things for me or with me, like that's also really, really difficult. So as we kind of grew into the relationship, our love languages changed because they had to. But obviously when we moved in together and got married, like our love was able to shift and to grow because we were able to give and receive appropriately to where now it's like, I'm sure we have some insecurities because we're human, but like it's not insecurities within the relationship. It's more just like insecurities with ourselves, which can impact the relationship to some extent. But again, that's like talking through things is really important. As cliche as that is about communication, it's learning how to communicate properly.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's smart. I think, you have to set boundaries with yourself and with your partner too when it comes to this sport. Because I mean it's a physique sport. That's what we're judged on stage. So definitely having those open conversations is vital for it. What was the other thing? Laura, do you have anything? I just lost it.
No, I was gonna say, so the thought of competing, has that ever kind of crossed your mind just to have that as like a experience?
I'm trying to
has it ever been mentioned to me?
Look the other way.
Literally, Tren O's, man.
Only about 1,000 times, but I would never do it. No. I think for me, if I was engrossed in the sport, like if Ashley wasn't my wife and she was my close friend, I would actually probably consider competing. But she's my wife. So if I got halfway through a prep and was like, I don't really want to do this, I don't have the option of bailing out.
Yeah.
Right. I would lose the respect of my partner if I bailed out. So
yeah. And like it for me, because he people bodybuild differently, right? But the thing is he doesn't know how you, Laura, or you, Meg, bodybuild. He sees how I bodybuild, right? And so for him, that expectation would be, well, he would have to bodybuild how I bodybuild and like how I hit my protocols and my programming. And like for him, he doesn't have the want or the why to follow through on that. So like I said, if he did like commit to a prep, in my eyes, okay, well, guess what? There's no backing out unless you had like a serious health issue or your body wasn't responding, like, actual reasons to pull out a prep. But for me, if it would be mental weakness, for me, it's like, it's just my brain doesn't understand that. I'd be like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, this is what contest prep is. It's hard. And if you quit because it was hard, I'd be like,
yeah. And I mean, I do hard things, but I do them because I'm interested in them.
Right.
And the minute I stop being interested in something, I pick up and I move on to something else. I find something else that's more interesting to me. Yeah. So if that was my point with bodybuilding, I'd be like, I'm ready to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Like the dynamic, because like you lift and everything, and like Tar lifts, but like you guys don't compete. Tar's a coach though, but then Laura, like you have Josh who competes. So it's kind of cool to like see like the 3 different
That's interesting. I never really thought about that. The fact that Tar coaches, but he's never competed.
No, he never will. It's not gonna cross his mind. He does like Muay Thai, like he likes lifting.
He doesn't coach, he doesn't bodybuild. Tar coaches, but doesn't bodybuild. But Josh competes and he's a coach too. So it's literally like the spectrum.
Like
yeah, for sure. And it's definitely challenging being on that avenue as well.
Absolutely, especially because you coach Josh, and to some extent I coach Eric, and obviously it's more like competitive versus lifestyle, and of course there are different dynamics with that. But like, Laura, why don't you talk about like how it is to coach your significant other, and I can also touch on that, and then I know Meg can touch on that because Tar does Meg's programming.
Yeah, I mean, initially when he first brought it up, I was like, no, not doing it. And like, it was even a conversation about him coaching me, and I was against it totally, because I know how I am with coaching and whatnot, and like, I am not a good client, and I'll own that. I am not a good client. I am very much wanting to be involved in decision making, and I wish that I had that, like, I'm just gonna listen. Just I don't have that. He does though. And we've been able to communicate a lot as to like what works for him, what doesn't, because this is his third prep now. Just from like past experiences and things like that. And it's been helpful for me learning from a coaching stance. But then there's also been things that like I've applied with either clients or myself or whatever else that he hasn't done before that has been really helpful for him to have a more successful prep. I felt uncertain of my ability to get him from, start to finish initially. And then having the experience has been not only good for him to go through, but for me to go through, because it has shown me that I can. And it's also taught me too that more than anything is not to be afraid to experiment. When it has come to my own preps and prepping myself and things like that, I've definitely overdone things that is now, in retrospect, been detrimental to what I've looked like. But that's that like type A, and I know that everybody that competes is kind of like that wants to just gas. And seeing from another point of view that is a little bit of a different personality, because Josh isn't the type A, and he isn't the like obsessive compulsive like I am. Seeing the better result from not having as, overkill as I've done in the past, and kind of collaborating about that has been good. And it's been good showing me different coaching techniques as like a collaborative effort with a client, as opposed to, being more so the one and the only in the driver's seat. I think that especially with a client that is more experienced, it's a significantly better experience to do it as a collaboration.
Absolutely. And Meg, how do you handle working with Tar as like your training coach? Like, how does that like mentally feel, especially when like he is trying to make decisions in your best interest, even though like for example, the thing that comes to mind is the barbell RDLs, right? Like your bread and butter.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really obnoxious with it. I smile a lot because of it, because it does make me happy that he's like an active part of bringing me back to the stage. It really does. So sorry, I get like really happy about it, but yeah, I'm like so I'm coached by Cameron Cheek, just to clarify that. He does my nutrition. He tells me like my cardio, my drug protocol, supplements, all that stuff. He deals with that. Tar is, he took over my training, and I've been very stubborn with my training. I don't let anybody touch it because I love it so much. It's very like, I feel like I'm very good at training. Like that's just something that's why I got into bodybuilding, is the training aspect, not really the competing. Like, honestly, I could care less about competing, but obviously I'm going to do it. But I do love the training aspect. And we were just like talking, and it's like, how can I take it to the next level? And I was like, I just need to let go completely of my training. And he knew what I needed to do. And like, he would tell me things like, oh, maybe you should try like backing off of the barbell RDL, because we were trying to bring down my upper body. I'm like, why do I still look like a WPD competitor? And he was like, the only thing could be the heavy RDL. So when he originally made my training, he sent it over to me. I opened it up and I saw that there was no barbell RDL. I was like having like a stroke. Like I was freaking out. And I texted him, I'm like, no, we need this in there. And I see him like he's on my Google sheet and I am too. And I'm like typing it. I'm like, it could go right here. And so he put it in, but obviously it's like dead last in the training day. And I have to lower down the volume, whatever, but it's in there. So that's all that matters. But he is honestly a freaking blessing. Like, obviously, there's a 5-hour time difference. I'm training like today, I'm going to be training around like 3, but every single working set, I send him the video. He gives me the form corrections. He tells me, like, I'm telling him, like, I'm like, what weight do I use? And he'll tell me, like, for leg press, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do 7 plates per side for my top set. And he's like, it's 1 set, do 8 plates and a quarter. And then I do it. Like, I get in my head like that, you know? So he pushes me and he's 4,500 miles away. So obviously being over there for the next 3 weeks is going to be really helpful, but it's definitely been what I needed because I've been so stuck in my ways with training. And I mean, it's only been 1 week, but it's honestly helped me like level up so much already. So I'm excited to grow my butt.
Absolutely. That actually brought up a really good question. And I think it'd be good to like provide some tips for the listeners. Like, and I'll start with Eric. How can you best support as a non-bodybuilder your bodybuilding partner, spouse? Like, what are some things that you have learned from our relationship, from our dynamic, that you think other people would benefit to hear from?
That's a good question. So I mean, number one, with any relationship, the thing that you're really looking for is to have the same priorities, right? So that's all it really is, right? Like how do you determine what your priorities are? It's what you spend your time, your money, and your energy on, right? So when you're in when you're a single person, you get all your time, all your money, and all your energy to yourself, and you get to pick how they work, right? Where they go. When you're in a relationship, your time, your energy, and your money anymore aren't yours, right? To some extent, there's always going to be some sharing, probably a lot of sharing between those two people. So you have one pool. You just make sure enough time, energy, and money goes towards it, and make sure you're comfortable with how much time, energy, and money goes towards it, right? So you have that conversation. You say like, hey, listen, like if you need to be in the gym 4 or 5 days a week, I'll take care of whatever's outside, or maybe I'll go with you, right? And you'd spend that time, right? Or, you know, maybe this means that we're not going to be able to do a triathlon together. I don't know what people are doing. You're not going to have that energy, right? And then you get comfortable with how much you're going to have to budget for this thing. So you make sure there's the money for it. And that's all it really is.
Right. But also, you say that so easily, like, oh yeah, it's just like how you prioritize and how you live your life. But I think a big component, since those are like 4 major topics and areas of concern, is how you talk about them, how you speak to the other person, because these can bring up some pretty heated arguments and you want to like share your side without necessarily hearing and receiving their side. And so rather than going at it from like a battle standpoint, like bring down the walls and be like, hey, this is what's important to me and why, what's important to you and why, and come to an agreement and an understanding, at least being willing to see the other person's point of view. So that way you can reach a compromise. And like something that really helped our relationship is we don't fight anymore, right? Like there are definitely times where we lose our temper, but it's usually due to an outside factor, but we don't fight. It's, if something is upsetting me or annoying me, it's like, hey, sweetheart, it would make me feel really loved if you did X instead of Y. Instead of being like, hey, you're doing Y, it's pissing me the fuck off, stop it, right? Because I've said that before, right? And does anything change? No. The only thing that changes is he gets pissed because I'm yelling at him, which rightly so, right? But it's more like, hey, this would make me feel loved if you did this, right? And his actions change a lot quicker because of how I'm portraying what's important to me and what I value.
Yeah, that's really important, I think. And I think when it comes to relationships and competing, you have to have these like deep conversations with people with your significant other, about like what to expect, even if it is your first prep. I mean, you're not going to be able to go on date nights to like this restaurant and that restaurant. You may not have the energy to go on like, I don't know, run a triathlon, like you said, or like, just do things that you normally do in like the off season setting. But you also can't like bring your partner down with you, like you can't say um like I can't do this, so you can't either. Like you're choosing to put yourself through prep. Obviously have that conversation for your partner to support you throughout it, but you can't make them feel like, they have to be doing it a certain way as well. I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I think it's a really significant hurdle
Yeah.
that you gotta cross over if you got one bodybuilder and one not a bodybuilder, is you have to go to a restaurant and have one person order a meal. I mean, it's not like you got to live every date like that, right? Like you can figure things out that you can both enjoy, right? But being able to sit with the awkwardness of one person eating and one person having like a Diet Coke because they've got their meal prep in the car,
Yeah.
I think is a useful exercise.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's sorry, Laura.
I was gonna say it's interesting even on the other end of the spectrum when the person, like for example, Josh and I compete, he competes, he's deep in prep, I'm like deep in off season now. And even having been in the reverse situation not long ago, it's still hard, even as the spouse, of like wanting to do things, wanting to have that person engage with you and whatever the case may be. And honestly, for a short term, kind of feeling like you don't have a relationship because you're not as present with one another. This is the first I've ever experienced that because I've never dated somebody who competes as well. I've always been the only one, which has also been an eye-opening experience because I've never been on the other side to see what that feels like on the receiving side. And I definitely can say it would make how in the future I would handle things different. Because it is hard. It almost does give you a feeling of loneliness because you're not the norm that you're used to. Not that you're being neglected or whatnot, but what you are used to receiving in both attention, affection, energy, all of it is not the same.
Yeah, and I mean that makes complete sense that it feels that way sometimes because I mean what I was saying earlier, right? It's not like nobody's really upset because you're not going out to dinner together. You're upset because you're not spending that time on the relationship, that time being
present. Even if the time is there, you're less present. Just because energy is not there, your mental capacity is not there. And it is one of those things you don't recognize until you actually go through it.
Yeah. And I think that's also on the competitors side too. Like you have like, I think that your maturity as you compete for a few years, it does grow. Like I think, in the past, I probably would have been like you can't go out, we can't go out and eat. I'm not gonna go there and sit and have like my meal prep or my Diet Coke. Like I have to be 100% all focused on my prep. But now it's like if Tar wants to go out to eat, like I'm going to go out with him. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to be present in the moment. I'm going to talk. I'm going to have a Diet Coke or I'm going to have water or coffee. Like, I think it's also a sign of maturing in this sport too. And realizing like you are the one in control of when you're in prep, essentially, So I think communication and maturity are huge in this sport with relationships for sure.
Yeah, and you would be amazed if you actually if you mature like that, right? Once you reach that level of maturity and you chill out and you can go and have that cup of coffee or whatever.
Feels nice.
Not spend 100% of all your resources on bodybuilding. I mean, when you got to that point, Meg, did you feel like you were a better or a worse bodybuilder? Do you feel like your gains suffered at all? Like,
no, I felt like I was way better because I was like, shit, like I'm doing this for the right reason now. Like, it's because I'm truly passionate about it. Like, no one's holding a gun to my head telling me I have to prep or anything. Like, I want to do this and it's 100% on me. So I can't let my my partner, my family, my friends suffer in the meantime. Obviously, like, okay, 2-3 weeks out, my energy is going to be low. My temper may be a little short, but like at the same time, you have to kind of check yourself occasionally and be like, listen, Meg, like, check yourself before you wreck yourself or your relationships. Because like, what is losing a relationship over prep? Like, yikes. So you have to make sure that that is solid prior, I think.
And even now, because I obviously came to that realization, especially with Austin as my coach, but I actually push for us to have more date nights out of the house, because also like we both work from home, right? So like his office is like woo, and my like little standing desk is woo. So it's like I push us to go out of the house. I'm like, hey, there's a little bar called Stone's Throw that we can walk to, right? So I get outside, I go on a walk, I get some steps in, and maybe he orders like a grilled chicken sandwich. I get a Diet Coke with lime. That matters. But like, I want to get out of the house and have like, happy hour with my husband, not my coworker / office space mate / whatever the fuck during the day.
Work proximity associate.
Yeah, work proximity associate. So like, I actually push for us to get out of the house for that time as husband and wife. So we're not just like parked in front of the TV with like our meal preps or whatever. Like, no, we actually get out and we do like husband and wife things. And obviously, like, even though I'm dieting, but still like in an off-season diet setting, like a Diet Coke is fine. I don't need to like order and take a free meal all the time, because it's just not that important to me. Like, food is not the important thing. It's who either I am sharing the meal with, if I do want an untracked meal, or at least the time. And so making sure you are fully present, not being on your phone. Like, phone doesn't need to eat first. Like, you don't need to show people like what you're getting from Instagram. Like, I know I've done that a few times, but like whenever I do that, it's like I'm losing time with him. And that's like, oh, that doesn't make me feel very good. So if you're going to be present, be present.
I try to get a bite in before she can.
Yeah, literally. He'll like mess up the shot.
Really quick, like,
it's not perfect.
So sorry.
Guess you can't post it, jackass.
I think that's important though. That's something like if Tara and I go out to a restaurant, like the phone is down, it's away. Like we're not touching our phones. It's just not, phones aren't allowed at the table, essentially. So I think that's huge. I think also realizing that there's more to date night or whatever than just food. Like you can go out, you can go see a movie, you can go walk around outside. Like there's so many more options. I feel like people are so programmed to like, oh, it's date night, we have to pick a restaurant, we have to get a dessert. Like there's other ways to kind of connect. And I think that is like a big like pivoting factor in a lot of relationships, realizing like, oh, we should probably spend quality time together, not just stuffing our faces at the dinner table. But well, it's just what I think.
I think that can be helpful too for somebody that is maybe deep in prep and like really struggling being food focused. Food focused. There are some people that being surrounded by it and other people enjoying it and whatever, like that can be triggering and that can throw them off and whatnot. I can say like for myself, that's never been something I've cared about because I'm not a foodie in general, but people that are, that is a huge hurdle for them to be able to get over. Yeah. So being able to do other things is helpful. Like just being able to say, hey, like, I'm not fully comfortable doing this. I don't fully trust myself if we do. Can we do something else? And being able to voice that to your partner, I think should be acceptable too, if they want to support you and see you be successful.
Yeah, definitely goes back to the communication thing, talking to your partner about like, hey, like being around this type of food or something, this is how I feel. And like just having them present during that moment can actually help, but can also stress you out. So you can just make sure that you're talking about that too and open about how you're feeling, not keeping that to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a million different ways that you can handle all of this, right? Like the only hard and fast rule is that you just got to remember that this is the person that you love and you try to do the best thing for them.
100%.
Like it's not easy, but it is simple.
Yeah.
And hopefully short term. I think that when it becomes the never ending prep, there's only so far that someone's going to be able to handle that.
Yeah, I wonder what you meant by short term. I've been here for 10 years.
No. I mean, like an actual like season of being in prep, you know, competition season. Like if you're that person that's like, I'm gonna just extend it for the entire year. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Good.
I have a question. So, Ash, you've placed last before. I have too.
Yeah, especially like when if it was like 1 or 2 people in my class and I got second, yeah I got last.
How in the beginning stages, like when you didn't really fully understand the sport of bodybuilding, not asking Ash, sorry. How did you handle her losing? Like, because you do love her and you're like, oh, you're the best. Like, how did that, like, was it hard for you to understand, like, why she got last? Or
oh no, I was under no premonition that she was the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know, one of the things you had to do as a partner was be honest.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I saw her and I saw the other girls on stage, and I'm like, she's too small.
Yeah.
she's better conditioned than some of them, but I think you were actually a little too hard, especially that second show.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, you came in way too hard.
Yeah.
So it was like, that's what it is.
But also, I didn't have a temper tantrum because honestly, it was my first year ever competing. I was just thrilled to be on stage because I finally like did the thing that I set out to do. So I was more just happy and proud that like I didn't pull out of prep because like I knew going in I wasn't going to win. Like I was like, hey, I'm just trying this out, see if I like it, see if I get bit by the bug. There we go.
Yeah.
So like even though I got like, you know, I got 4th in a bigger open class, that was pretty cool. But like I never won or got first place other than like true novice where I was the only bitch in that class, you know, so I got first and last. So for me, like I never once had a temper tantrum because like I was just happy to be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck, I did the thing.
Yeah, it was more like waiting for her at the end of like a marathon or something.
Yeah.
Than it was like watching her bare knuckle box somebody.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for partners and for our family, you know, like when my family was there for my pro debut, and like I personally thought I looked amazing. Like that was the best I've ever looked in my entire life. So, and I had people in my corner saying, oh, you're going to place like top 5 or you're going to win your pro debut or something. And then I come legit 16th place, like 3rd call outs. Like that was really hard for my family to understand.
Yeah.
Because they saw how much like effort and how much like passion I put in and poured into that prep. So sometimes it is hard for your significant other to like understand. I mean, bodybuilding, politics, whatever you want to call it, you know, it's hard to understand when like you're a person that you do deeply care about and you see firsthand how much effort they put into this thing, maybe not get rewarded in the way that you think, but just comes down to the sport of bodybuilding. I mean,
that actually reminds me of a conversation that I had with his family because his family went to my show. My family didn't. And his mom she's a very supportive, very loving person. And she's like, oh, you're going to blow all those girls on stage away. And I looked at her and I was like, I understand what you were saying, but please don't discredit those other athletes' hard work. Like we're all showing up on show day. Like they worked just as hard, if not more, depending upon their situation. Like it's my 2nd show of my 1st season, and I'm more just doing it because I wanted my family to be there. Because my first actual show, we had evacuated with our cats because of a hurricane, right? So like my first show was just literally a whirlwind. So I only did the 2nd show because I wanted more people to be there that I knew and loved. But for me, it was like getting them to understand that, hey, all those athletes worked hard. I just wanted my family to see me on stage. I wanted to share something that meant a lot to me with people that mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This next round will be different.
It's gonna be so different.
This next round will be different. This is the more competitive round. So we'll see.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
He's gonna get some mace just in case I like go feral.
For sure. I feel the same way about like me stepping on stage next year. It's like I've changed like so much this year in preparation for that. So I know it's gonna be tough. So, but I think that's also where you have to like talk to your partner about like, okay, if I do need a moment to myself after even placing good or placing bad, like for them to like respect that, give you your space is huge because okay, emotions will be high. Like if you lose and you're depleted, you're gonna cry. And like it's just you have to, you know, process it how you need to. And hopefully your partner will understand that. But I think that talking about it before it happens and just preparing them, you know, I mean, we're not really in control of our emotions when we're that deep into prep. So
I won and I was still devastated. How does that
honestly, yeah. Yeah. God.
Yeah.
I remember I wrestled all throughout like middle school and elementary school. And I remember when I went to tournaments and I got into like the more competitive levels and stuff, and I started losing, I would cry after the matches. I mean, this is a little third grade Eric, but still. You know, there's
just 2 years ago. What?
Yeah, that's right.
Weird.
it was in the closet?
Right.
But yeah, there's something very, very tough about being beat at a very personal sport when it's not a team sport, when it's just you up there, right? Yep. There's something that's tough about that.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ladies, this was a good pod. Any final thoughts or questions that you want to address?
Well, I do want you, I know you, I think you've shared it on this podcast, Ash, before. What does Eric tell you during training when you need to be pushed?
Yeah, well, why don't you take it away? Because you say some bangers.
No, that shit's poison. I'm whispering in her ear about all her worst fears. She asks me to do this.
Yeah,
I
love it.
I fully
for a long time, I was like, "Yeah, you got it. Let's go. Come on." She's like, "Don't be a fucking little bitch cheerleader." Like, Jesus Christ. What a sweet little blonde church girl I married.
I know. Now he has this black iron bitch, but he'll literally be in my ear. He'd be like, "Did you come here to bitch out? Is this what second place looks like to you?" Like he'll literally just be in my ear. Granted, I can hear some of it, but some of it's just like droned out from men chanting because I listen to weird shit when I train. But like he definitely like has pushed on like my pain button when it comes to like the expectation I have. And honestly, like you do bring out the best in my training because like let's be honest, there are some training sessions where you feel like a bad bitch and anything that anyone says like could not motivate you further. There are some days where you're dragging ass and you're like, you need someone to wake you up.
So I'll be like, I guess you're just going to die a failure then.
Like literally.
Our entertainment. I hope somebody observes this taking place. Like
it's not abuse.
As they're training and is like, oh my God, like,
but yeah, but like then like they'll look at us and be like, oh, if anything, she beats him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not that big of a
no, she told me to. She told it's okay.
I told him it's a hall pass, right? I'm sorry, like I'm killing him over here. Smalls. But yeah, I appreciate you encouraging me and being a good training partner. Because it took us a long time to figure out how to be good training partners. It really did.
Try my best, kid.
Yeah, you do a good job.